7 legendary Harley-Davidson that actually suck to own. Harley-Davidson has built a legacy on power, style, and the freedom of the open road. But not even Harley lives up to the hype. Some of their most iconic models turned out to be nightmares for riders, plagued by mechanical failures, safety issues, and design flaws that left owners frustrated. Here are 7 legendary Harleys that look great in the showroom but fell apart where it mattered most, on the road. 7. 2015 Electra Glide Ultra Classic. The Electra Glide Ultra Classic was built for long-haul touring, promising comfort, reliability, and all the features needed for cross-country rides. However, the 2015 model had its fair share of problems that made it more of a headache than a dream machine. First, the bike was heavy, close to 900 pounds when fully loaded. That kind of weight made handling difficult, especially at lower speeds or when navigating tight corners. Some riders also reported experiencing handling issues, particularly at highway speeds. One of the biggest concerns was the so-called death wobble, a violent front-end shaking that could make the bike feel unstable, especially when leaning into turns or hitting uneven pavement. Not just that, some units had a defect where the clutch wouldn't disengage properly, making shifting gears unpredictable and stopping the bike harder than it should have been. This problem was serious enough for Harley to issue a recall, as it posed a real safety risk. All things considered, the 2015 Electra Glide Ultra Classic wasn't a complete disaster. But with handling concerns, clutch issues, and excessive heat, it was far from Harley's best touring bike. But at least it didn't come with cheap parts like this next bike. 6. Harley-Davidson Street 750. The Street 750 was meant to bring new riders into the Harley-Davidson world. It was lightweight, affordable, and designed for city riding. But the problem was that it felt more like a budget experiment than a proper Harley. The Street 750 was built to be cheap, and unfortunately, it felt that way. The materials didn't have the solid, premium feel that people expected from a Harley. The switches and buttons felt flimsy. Some parts didn't fit together as well as they should have, and even the paint job didn't hold up well over time. Harley even had to recall the bike because it was missing a rear reflector, something small but essential. That meant the bike wasn't even road legal straight from the factory, which was a pretty big mistake. Performance-wise, the bike came with a 749cc liquid-cooled Revolution XV twin engine, which was decent for a beginner bike, but the ride quality wasn't great. The suspension was stiff, making the bike uncomfortable on rough roads. The handling was also a bit sluggish, and the throttle response wasn't as smooth as it should have been. While the Street 750 struggled with quality, the next bike faced a different problem. It was Harley's first attempt at an adventure bike, and the execution was simply a mess. 5. Harley-Davidson Pan America 1250. Harley-Davidson is known for its cruisers and touring bikes, so when the company decided to step into the adventure bike market, it was a bold move. The Pan America 1250 was designed to compete with established adventure bikes like the BMW GS series and Ducati Multistrada. On paper, it had everything it needed: big power, advanced technology, and an off-road capable suspension. But in reality, the bike had too many reliability issues in its early production run. The bike had serious fuel pump failures. Sometimes it wouldn't start or would stall unexpectedly. Another issue was electrical glitches. Riders reported random warning lights, faulty sensors, and software malfunctions that sometimes required dealer intervention to reset. Some bikes also had burnt radiator hoses, which was an unexpected and frustrating problem on a brand new machine. To be fair, Harley worked quickly to address many of these issues with software updates and recalls. But by the time these fixes were in place, a lot of riders had already lost confidence in the bike. But even though they messed up their first adventure bike, you'd expect that they could continue doing what they did best, right? Well, no. It seems Harley was starting to slack off in every aspect. But don't be like them. hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more amazing videos on your favorite motorcycles. 4. 2009 to 2013 Road Glide. The Road Glide has always been a favorite among Harley touring riders, thanks to its distinctive frame-mounted fairing and smooth highway cruising ability. But if you were looking at one from the 2009 to 2013 era, you might want to think twice. These models had a problem where the brake fluid could become contaminated over time, causing the anti-lock braking system to stop working. For a heavy touring bike, that was a serious safety concern. If the ABS failed in an emergency stop situation, riders could easily lose control. Harley eventually issued a recall, but not before a lot of riders had close calls. Some even reported that the brakes felt spongy or unresponsive, making them hesitate to trust the system, even after repairs. Despite its comfortable ride and long-distance capabilities, the 2009 to 2013 Road Glide had too many issues for a touring bike that was supposed to be rock solid. The braking problem alone was enough to put a dent in its reputation. Speaking of Harley models that didn't meet expectations, let's move on to one that was supposed to lead the future, but instead it divided riders from the start. 3. Harley-Davidson Livewire. The Harley-Davidson Livewire was meant to be a game changer. It was Harley's first full electric motorcycle designed to bring the brand into the modern era. It had impressive acceleration, cutting-edge tech, and a futuristic design. But despite all of that, it struggled to gain traction, and here's why. The price tag was a major problem. When the Livewire launched, it was priced around $30,000, making it one of the most expensive electric motorcycles on the market. For that kind of money, most riders expected either more range or more features, but the Livewire's range was only around 95 to 150 miles per charge, depending on how you rode it. That just wasn't enough for a lot of riders. Then there was the issue of charging infrastructure. Unlike gas-powered Harleys that you could refuel in minutes, the Livewire needed a DC fast charger to get a full charge in about an hour. If you were using a regular home outlet, it took almost overnight to fully charge. That made long-distance trips impractical, which was a deal-breaker for a lot of potential buyers. Beyond the technical issues, the Livewire just didn't feel like a Harley. It was smooth, quiet, and futuristic. But part of what makes a Harley is the rumble, the character, and the raw mechanical feel. Without that, many longtime Harley riders didn't connect with it. While the Livewire failed because it didn't feel like a Harley, riders hate the next bike on this list because it was way ahead of its time. 2. Harley-Davidson V-Rod. The V-Rod was unlike any other Harley when it debuted. Instead of the classic air-cooled V-twin, it had a liquid-cooled engine developed with Porsche. It was fast, powerful, and had a modern aggressive look. Naturally, it seemed like a great way to attract a new generation of riders. But in reality, the V-Rod struggled for several reasons. The first issue was that original Harley fans never accepted it. The V-Rod was a radical departure from Harley's traditional designs, and die-hard fans didn't like that it had a high revving engine and a sportier feel. Many Harley riders want that low-end torque and classic rumble, and the V-Rod just didn't deliver that same experience. Another issue was comfort. The V-Rod had a stretched-out riding position with forward controls and a long, low stance. It looked aggressive, but it wasn't the most comfortable bike for longer rides. The foot positioning was awkward for some riders, and the stiff suspension didn't absorb bumps well. Ultimately, the V-Rod was a bike that never quite found its audience. But this next bike is just plain bad. 1. 1980 Harley-Davidson Sportster. The Harley-Davidson Sportster has been around for decades, and while some versions became iconic, the 1980 model was a disaster. This was a bike plagued with reliability issues, poor build quality, and some of the worst engineering decisions Harley ever made. It was built during one of Harley's darkest eras, the AMF era. At the time, AMF was focused on cutting costs, and the result was a Sportster that felt cheap and unfinished. One of the Sportster's worst flaws was its vibration. Older Harley engines always had some level of shake, but the Ironhead V-twin in the 1980 Sportster was brutal. It vibrated so much that bolts would loosen, parts would rattle off, and riders would experience severe hand and foot numbness after long rides. It made the bike almost unbearable for daily riding. There was also the infamous electrical system. The 1980 Sportster had constant charging and ignition problems. Many riders reported dead batteries, faulty wiring, and inconsistent sparks. Some even had to carry extra fuses or tools just to keep the bike running. On top of all that, oil leaks were common. The Ironhead motor was notorious for seals failing and gaskets wearing out, leading to constant drips and messes in garages or parking lots. While later Sportsters improved significantly, the 1980 model remains one of the worst Harleys ever made. Which one of these Harleys have you ever ridden before? Let us know in the comments. Also, hit that subscribe button for more amazing videos about your favorite bikes.